This is easily the most important waiver wire of the season, especially at the wide receiver position, and that's why in this video, we're going to be breaking down the 7 wide receivers that you need to know and try and get on the waivers before your friends do. Now, let's get into it with one wide receiver who I think a lot of people are just going to overlook, and that man's name is Tre Tucker of the Las Vegas Raiders. And look, don't get me wrong, based on what he did in week 3, if you're not familiar, 140 yards, 3 touchdowns, people won't overlook that, but they'll just be like, this is just like a 1-week thing. I mean, he's Tre Tucker for after all. But honestly, we have now 3 weeks of him playing with a new quarterback in Geno Smith and a new coaching staff out there of looking good. Tre Tucker's been highly involved. I mean, let's get into it. To start the season off, this dude had 54 yards and a touchdown, right? In his first ever game with Geno Smith, he was a top 24 wide receiver, Tre Tucker. Then last week, okay, he only has 3 catches, but you know what the important thing was here? He had 8 targets. For the second straight week now, including week 3, he has 9 targets, so back-to-back weeks of at least 8 targets. He currently has, on the season, 4 receiving touchdowns. You know how many passing touchdowns Geno Smith has this year? Obviously, I don't think these weeks of 41 fantasy points are going to continue, but when you have a guy going out there, if we look at his game logs right now, playing 91% of the snaps, 91%. This past week, it's not up yet, but he played 97% of the snaps according to PFF. This is an every down player who, I get Jakobi Meyers there. I get Brock Bowers, who seems banged up, is there, but we have to start to take this seriously. Normally, if I saw a guy like Tre Tucker catch 8 balls for 145 yards and 3 touchdowns, I'd be like, yeah, that happens. Like once, twice, maybe 3 times a year, these random wide receivers pop off on not that much usage and they come through. But he just saw a lot of usage, and the week before that, he saw 8 targets, and the week before that, he scored a touchdown for this team. Now, I'm sure he's going to be picked up in a lot of leagues, if not all leagues, because he was literally the #1 scorer across all positions. He outscored Jonathan Taylor. He outscored Caleb Williams, who had 4 touchdown passes this past week, right? He outscored everybody according to ESPN Fantasy. And look, there's a lot of reasons to like him. Jakobi Meyers is still the #1 receiver on this team for now. I will say he is for now based on everything that we know. He ran 100% of the routes, only saw 16% of the targets. That was his lowest target share. I believe if we pull this up right now, we can look at JJ Zacharyason's tweet here. It was his lowest target share, under 15%, for the first time since week 15 of 2024. So we're talking like 6-7 games. Obviously an outlier for Jakobi Meyers, who had a solid first 2 games. He started off week 3 with a 45-yard catch on the first drive. It looked like it was going to go well, and then he kind of went away, only had like 2 catches the rest of the game. But I'm very impressed by Tre Tucker's 36% target share on 97% of the routes run, and I just want to emphasize this one more time. This is not like this came out of nowhere randomly. He's been building for 3 weeks now with a brand new quarterback. That quarterback, Geno Smith, can build chemistries with new wide receivers that we weren't expecting him to coming into the year. And as of right now, it looks like Tre Tucker is actually going to be one of those guys, which is pretty crazy. He's just out there a ton right now. He has a real role in this offense. If I had to say, rest of season right now, obviously I still want Jakobi Meyers. We've just seen it for way longer. We've seen it for 3 to 4 years of him being productive, including the first 2.5 weeks of this year. I still want Jakobi Meyers over Tre Tucker, but there's definitely something going on with Brock Bowers. He's injured. Michael Mayer got hurt this past week. And if you're talking about the other guys on this team, people thought there was going to be some hype for Deontay Thornton. He looked good in OTAs and minicamp and training camp. Jack Bech, when he was drafted in the second round, there was a lot of hype for him. Tre Tucker saying, no, I'm the veteran here. Hold my beer. And he's going out there and he's looking great right now. And Geno Smith has targeted him 17 times the past 2 weeks. He clearly trusts him. I don't know what's going to happen in week 4, week 5, beyond that. But for right now, he's somebody that I want to at least stash on my bench and see what happens. You're obviously not going to be able to start him every single week. You probably can't even start him in week 4. But once the bye weeks in week 5 and the Packers and the Bears wide receivers are no longer available, maybe you put him in there if you keep seeing this trend going the right way. Now, the next man we have to talk about is Luther Burton of the Chicago Bears. And unfortunately, this game was in prime time. It was in prime time against America's team, the Cowboys, and everybody saw Luther Burton, or a lot of people. If you didn't, he scored on a 60-yard touchdown on a flea flicker. DeAndre Swift pitches it back to Caleb Williams for a touchdown down the field. And maybe that's going to lead to a lot of people saying, I got to go pick that guy up in my fantasy league. But hopefully it doesn't, because he still didn't play a ton of snaps. But let's get into this. If you're not familiar, Luther Burton was the 2nd-round pick by the Chicago Bears in his junior season, or his 3rd season, I think his sophomore year in college. He had over 1,200 receiving yards, an insane 33% target share. He was kind of comped to like a Deebo Samuel, Wan'Dale Robinson, sort of this gadgety type player. But in his final season, 2024, he struggled. Just 61 catches, less than 700 yards. A lot of people were concerned as to, like, out of nowhere, why did he drop in his production? And Luther Burton went from a lot of people in 2023 thinking a slam dunk 1st-round pick to falling to the 2nd round to Ben Johnson, new coach of the Bears, and that organization. So what does this mean? Well, it means that he joined a team that had DJ Moore, he had Rome Odunze, a #1 overall pick, top 10 pick the year before, and then he probably wasn't going to see a lot of playing time, at least right away. And that's exactly what we saw. If you fast forward now to the first 2 weeks of this season, you only saw Luther Burton out there for 18% of the routes. That's the first 2 weeks overall on average, right? 18% of the routes. He was only earning 5% of the targets according to Fantasy Life. And for that reason, that's why he was dropped in most leagues where he was rostered. That's why he's currently available as I record this in over 95% of fantasy leagues, because he was a wide receiver 3 on an offense that wasn't using him, or wide receiver 4 really. But boy, oh boy, is that slowly going to change, because heading Heading into week 3 against the Cowboys, Ben Johnson, the coach, said we need to use Luther Burton more. And what happens? 3 catches, 101 yards on his 3 targets, and a touchdown in that game. The dude averaged 33 yards per catch. Obviously insane. But if you look under the hood a little bit, it's not like his usage increased that much. Now, he did play 31% of the routes and nearly double what he was seeing this year, but he was still the clear wide receiver 4 on this team, behind Rome Odunze, behind DJ Moore, behind Olamide Zaccheaus. He's still, if you look at the target share, number 1 Rome Odunze, number 2 DJ Moore, who also scored a touchdown, number 3 Olamide Zaccheaus, number 4 among the wide receivers was still Luther Burton. So it's not like he's automatically a top 3 receiver or he's surpassing DJ Moore. It's not even close. But the good thing is this was his 3rd game ever for a rookie who dealt with an injury during OTAs and the preseason, and he's trending in the right direction, just played double the amount of routes. As you can see, Ryan Heath says right here, the Bears rookies saw progress this week. Luther Burton and Colston Loveland, who got hurt this past week, he's currently questionable, uncertain for week 4, each saw a 10.5% target share after combining for just 8.5 the team's targets over the first 2 games. So they each saw more usage this past week. It looks like obviously Rome Odunze is the number 1 on this team. DJ Moore is still out there running as a number 2, and he's been pretty solid as a number 2. We'll see what happens with Colston Loveland, but I would say by the midpoint of the season, by the time the Bears have their bye in week 4, by the way, coming out in week 5, you might see, let me say that again. I just want to correct the record. I think I said week 4. The Bears have their bye in week 5. They play in week 4, but they're going to come out of their bye then in week 6, and maybe you see some more usage for the rookie Luther Burton, who's already seeing that usage. Like, it's already trending in that direction for this guy, and normally we see after the bye week, some people call it the post-bye rookie bump, right? Whatever you want to call it, we normally see these types of things happen. The veteran Olamide Zaccheaus, who's been a journeyman in the NFL, the Atlanta Falcons, the Washington Commanders, he gets surpassed by the exciting rookie who the coach likes and is already trending in the right direction, and Luther Burton as he gets more and more snaps, and the team has an extra week during the bye week in week 5 to get him more into the offense, scheme him in. Try and pick up Luther Burton while you can, and then honestly, this one might seem boring, but these are the types of picks, especially with the bye weeks coming up, that you want to make. I'm looking right now at Christian Kirk, who appeared healthy in week 3. He made his Texans debut. He made his season debut in week 3. And if you look at the box scores, it doesn't seem sexy. Christian Kirk went out there. He had 3 catches for 25 yards. He averaged 8 yards per catch out of the slot. He gets your 5.5 fantasy points in a PPR league. It's nothing to look at. But the important thing was he looked healthy coming back. He was 2nd on this team immediately in routes, 77%, ahead of Xavier Hutchinson, ahead of both the rookies out of Iowa State and Higgins and Noel. And you can see right here, 23% of the targets. Number 2 on the team behind Nico Collins. That was 8 targets in this game for Christian Kirk. He's never played in a game with CJ Stroud. He's been banged up, right? He comes right in right away as a veteran slot receiver who knows how to play that position, earns 8 targets. That's impressive. Now, I know Christian Kirk has dealt with injuries this year, 2025, last year, 2024, season ending 2023. He had an injury, but when he's actually out there and healthy, you look at 2022, over 1,000, over 1,100 receiving yards. 2021, 17 games, nearly 1,000 receiving yards. Obviously, these are years ago where he was younger, more in his prime, different offense, different coaches, different quarterbacks. But I'm just saying right now, all the defensive attention is going to be on Nico Collins. That's what we've seen these past 2 or 3 weeks. Everything underneath is going to be open for Christian Kirk. We saw that last week with 8 targets. As CJ Stroud and this offense settle in, it's been atrocious so far. We're going to get more production out of Kirk, in my opinion. You can see Ryan Heath just kind of summarizing this up. Christian Kirk immediately assumed the Texans wide receiver 2 role. He had a 21% target share, marks the first time a Texans player next to Nico Collins has exceeded a 17% target share in any game this year. So that's kind of like your Tank Dell now, the number 2, the Robin to the Batman of Nico Collins with Christian Kirk there. I'm not saying Christian Kirk's a league winner. He's not. But in week 5, I have DJ Moore on buy in 1 league. I have Rome Odunze on buy in 1 league. I've already picked up Kirk in both those leagues to maybe be my number 2 flex option. If you look at the rest of the competition here, Xavier Hutchinson is nothing. He's done nothing in his 3 weeks this year that he's been out there, and 2 weeks without Christian Kirk, and even last year when guys were banged up. These rookies are not taking their steps forward right now in both Jalen Noel and Jaden Higgins, who apparently looked great in the preseason. Where is he? Jaden Higgins has done nothing right now. It's basically Nico Collins seeing a ton of extra over-the-top coverage right now, more defensive attention, and then Christian Kirk, I'm also not concerned about Dalton Schultz, the tight end, who basically could do nothing after the catch. So if you can right now, go ahead and try and add Christian Kirk if these other guys that we're mentioning are gone. Honestly, Kirk, if you need a spot start in like week 5 for the buys with Luther Burton going on bye, Kirk's probably the guy you want instead. Now, before we get into this next receiver, you should consider adding. If you're not familiar, I give out my free top 50 overall rankings every week to help you set your lineups. You can get them right now totally free with the link in the description below or by going to fantasyrankingsfree.com. That will take you to this page where you enter your email, and then I'll send you the top 50 overall rankings. Be sure to check your spam and promotional folders, and those will help you set your lineups. They're updated every single Thursday and Sunday. Now, if you want my full top 150 rankings, waiver wire rankings every single week, and fab budget recommendations, game notes, and a whole bunch more, that's why I built the Fantasy Blueprint. It's what I use in all my leagues. Over 10,000 people are currently members and have the Blueprint right now. If you want to join or learn more, you can check it out at jointheblueprint.com. It's also linked down below. All right, the next guy I want to talk about is Alec Pierce of the Colts, because look, there's a lot of assumptions that, oh, Anthony Richardson is no longer the starter here, the guy who's going to suffer the most, as most players players are going to benefit from an inaccurate Anthony Richardson is Alec Pierce, because he's a downfield weapon, and now you get Daniel Jones, who never threw downfield with the Giants, and I understood all those concerns. But instead, we've quietly been seeing, especially these past 2 weeks, Alec Pierce being targeted a lot more by Daniel Jones, especially downfield. I mean, check out these game logs. In week 1, he had that one big 36-yard reception, but in week 2, pretty nice game. 4 catches, 68 yards on 80 air yards. This past week, 4 catches, 67 yards, another 10 fantasy point day. By the way, he did this in just 3 quarters before leaving with a concussion. We'll check on his status moving forward. Back-to-back games of 5 targets in this offense, and he's carving out a pretty serious role, I would say, in what looks like one of the better offenses, believe it or not, in the NFL as the downfield option and also the intermediate target. Now, this is mostly an ad just for your deeper leagues, but it was nice to see once again he was second on the team in targets, and this is kind of a guy that he's going to get his no matter what, right? They're going to scheme up these shots like you've seen for 17 yards per catch to Alec Pierce. Some games, maybe Michael Pittman, like week 2, he'll disappear in week 2 when the middle of the field options, Tyler Warren, Josh Downs, have better options than Michael Pittman, having Patrick Surtain on him on the outside. But Alec Pierce, no matter what, he's going to get those shot plays downfield. And Shane Steichen has shown that he can scheme them up. Now, I will say he's still the wide receiver 3 on this team. When you factor in Tyler Warren, he's still the 4th option on this team. So this is more of a deeper league ad. He did get concussed this past week, which on average, NFL players miss 7 days from a concussion. So if he was to miss, if you're in a deeper league and you need a spot start, Adonai Mitchell would slide right into that 3rd wide receiver spot, that field stretcher in week 4. But I will just say that last year, even with a worse quarterback in Anthony Richardson and Joe Flacco at times, you saw these spike performances. 21 points, 16 points, 22 points, right? You scroll down a little bit more, 18-point games, 24-point games, 14 points. I mean, he had 4 different games last year where he was a top 15 fantasy receiver because he's getting the targets downfield. They lead to big plays, lead to big explosive touchdowns sometimes. And now you seem to be in an offense where at least the situation looks a lot better for sustained drives, for these big plays. Shane Steichen is cooking right now with Daniel Jones. Maybe we get a little bit more of those. We haven't had the big game for Alec Pierce yet. Maybe he misses week 4, but the next time that we see him in your deeper leagues or your 12-team leagues with 7-8 bench spots, he should be rostered. Another guy who should be rostered, especially for probably the next month or so, maybe even 6 weeks of the season, is Jalen Tolbert right now because of what just happened to CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb ends up going out there. Video suggests his high ankle sprain. SportsMD analysis says he's great because that's exactly what the injury was. It was a high ankle sprain. The Cowboys, as of now, are saying they're going to take 10 to 14 days to see where he's at then. So he's probably going to miss at least 2 weeks. But let's be real here. On average, people with high ankle sprains, especially receivers that rely on their route running and have to cut sharply, it's probably going to be 4 to 6 weeks until we see CeeDee Lamb. So who's going to step in? Well, it seems like it's going to be Jalen Tolbert. That's who it was in week 3. He led the team actually running 89% of the routes. Now, he only had 14% of the targets, second amongst the wide receivers. Jake Ferguson actually led the team with over 30% target share in week 3. George Pickens looks like he'll remain the number 1 receiver on this team. Not sure I love that for George Pickens having all the defensive attention instead of CeeDee Lamb taking a lot of it away. But we'll see what ends up happening there. Now, overall in week 3, not great. Jalen Tolbert just 3 catches for 24 yards, but let's be honest here. He was coming into this game not even thinking he was going to factor in that much. He did have a big crucial 3rd down at some point in this game when the game was somewhat closer. But now he's going to have an entire week and really weeks until CeeDee Lamb comes back where the offense can scheme him in a little bit more as what it looks like will be sort of that move around player. Maybe he'll be the Y in this offense at times, the Z at times moving into the slot, while George Pickens looks like, at least right now, he's mostly going to be the X outside receiver. You can see the target share here. This is via Ryan Heath. Once CeeDee Lamb went down in this game, Jake Ferguson led the team 31%, Pickens 20%, Jalen Tolbert 13%. But look at the rest of the guys on this team. Like Javonte Williams, a running back, 11%. If we look at the rest of the wide receivers, Ryan Floundery, who had like 10 catches all of last year, Kevontae Turpin, who's looked really good as like this gadget guy, end around, let him use his speed, but he's not somebody who's going to win with his routes often in games. So unless the Cowboys make a trade or acquire somebody in free agency, right now it basically looks like Pickens as your X and then Tolbert as your move guy who can move the chains along with Jake Ferguson. Again, just like Christian Kirk, Jalen Tolbert is not some sort of league winner or anything like that. He's a guy like, say you had CeeDee Lamb, say you had Mike Evans, say you had Terry McLaurin. We're waiting on what his status will be after getting injured. They can at least fill in for you these next couple of weeks, especially once we get to week 5 and beyond when the bye weeks start to become a problem. Another one of those players who probably doesn't have league winning upside, but maybe he could break out a little bit in his rookie year as a 4th round pick is Alec Imanor. He was featured in this video last week after scoring a touchdown and looking pretty good. And now in back-to-back weeks against some pretty tough defenses, mind you, he scored a touchdown and looked fantasy relevant. You can see that right here. In his first game ever, just 2 catches, 13 yards. But then in his second game, 4 catches, 56 yards, touchdown, top 24 wide receiver. This past week, another 4 catches, a touchdown, 38 yards. He was a top 30 wide receiver with 14 fantasy points. So again, these are 2 nice weeks being stacked back-to-back weeks early in the season. by a rookie who, coming out of Stanford, had a lot of good things about his film. We're now seeing that in the NFL, and it looks like his quarterback Cam Ward likes throwing to him and trusts throwing to him because Chig Okonkwo, Calvin Ridley are dropping balls while Alec Imanor isn't. You could see this past week, Chig Okonkwo did lead the team with 5 catches for 66 yards, but then it was Alec Imanor, 4 catches, 38 yards. Calvin Ridley only 1 catch, 27 yards. Once again, had some pretty brutal drops in this game. Once again, looked pretty poor out there in terms of just his route running, his effort. It wasn't looking good. Again, it's only a couple of games, but as of right now, Alec Imanor seems to have more trust than Calvin Ridley, which is shocking. I don't think it'll be that way the rest of the way. Then for Cam Ward, the quarterback trusts that guy more. Here's kind of just a cool tweet to summarize how this offense has gone. The offense itself has looked terrible. The running backs have been inefficient, mostly Tony Pollard. Quarterback has looked good here and there, but the offensive line hasn't held up all that much, and the coaching has been a little bit questionable. Alec Imanor, 32.7 fantasy points this year. Calvin Ridley, just 19.1. Again, it's just 3 weeks. At the end of the season, we could just look back on this as like a slump for Calvin Ridley to start the year with a new quarterback, with a new coaching staff, but we'll see how it plays out. I want to take note of these rookies who were kind of exciting in college, coming into the NFL, and right away from a new quarterback, Cam Ward, getting attention, finding the end zone. I at least want to take note of that with Alec Imanor. He shouldn't be on waiver wires. If you look at his upcoming schedule, a matchup against the Texans, that's tough, but Derek Stingley did get banged up this past week, so maybe he'll have some a little bit softer of a matchup, whether it's Calvin Ridley, Alec Imanor throughout that game for some snaps. Cardinals defense, you could win there in the secondary, definitely with the Raiders. Patriots is fine, Colts is fine, Chargers good defense. So overall, moving forward these next 4 to 6 weeks, couple of tough matchups, but for the most part, nice matchups for Alec Imanor as the bye weeks approach. And at the end of the day, outside of Calvin Ridley, who I assume gets it going at some point, Tyler Lockett, mostly just going to be like a 2 to 4 catch guy for 30 or 40 yards at this stage in his career. Van Jefferson's getting phased out. If we look at the guys who are running routes this past week, I mean, Jameer Deke, another rookie, he seems to be 5th on this depth chart. I'm not really concerned about any competition here. It's basically this offense right now trying to run the ball for 3 yards per carry with Tony Pollard, using Chig Okonkwo in the middle of the field, hoping Calvin Ridley catches a pass, and then Alec Imanor seems to be the guy that they're trusting the most. Now, before we get into the next wide receiver that you should consider adding, I don't know if you know this, but I've teamed up with DraftKings Pick 6, the official daily fantasy sports partner of the NFL, and they're offering you a chance to win some real money. All right, here's what I'm talking about. Just pick more or less on 2 or more player stats, whether it's your favorite team, whether it's a guy that you like that week based on his matchup, and that allows you to unlock the upside to potentially win some real money. It's as simple as that. There's no convoluted rules. There's no gimmicks. You just pick more or less on some players, and then you watch those players perform. And now here's the best part, a little bit of a bonus for you. New DraftKings Pick 6 customers get $50 in bonus picks with just a $5 entry on your first pick set. This is your opportunity to put your football knowledge to the test. Just download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use code SAL. In partnership with DraftKings Pick 6, the crown is yours. Okay, the next situation we have to talk about has to do with this right here. Mike Evans, another stud veteran wide receiver like CeeDee Lamb, like Terry McLaurin, got hurt this past week. It was a hamstring. His reaction suggests high severity. Now, I was watching this game. I had my quad box on. I had my laptop with another 2 games on it. He immediately left the field. He immediately ran right to the locker room. He knew it was bad. He was throwing his helmet. He immediately went to the locker room. Usually means severity. Last year, he got placed on the IR with a hamstring injury. Likely going to happen again this year. It hasn't been official yet based on this recording, but I assume we're going to get that news soon. Now, as you can see right here, with him gone, here's the wide receiver room. It's Emeka Egbuka, who's looked good, battling his own injury last week. Chris Godwin, who potentially could return in week 4 to this offense. We'll see if he's ready in time. Other than that, Tez Johnson hasn't really had that many snaps in the NFL. Jalen McMillan's on IR. Sterling Shepard and Ryan Miller were involved last week. It looks like Sterling Shepard is the next man up here. And that's exactly who I want to focus on because he actually flashed. He's flashed in the past. By the way, Baker Mayfield loves throwing to Sterling Shepard. These guys seem to be like best friends in real life. They have a great connection. This past week, Sterling Shepard, 4 catches, 80 yards, averaged 20 yards per reception. He was in there on 2 wide receiver sets. He was in there in the slot at times and 3 wide receiver sets when Mike Evans went down in this game. He led the team because Mike Evans left and Egbuka was dealing with injury. 77% of the routes, a nice 18% of the targets is pretty solid as well. So Sterling Shepard out of this wide receiver room is the guy I'd be targeting. Now, if Chris Godwin does return, I don't expect Godwin to be 100%. So Shepard, if you're in a bind, if you had Mike Evans maybe and you also had CeeDee Lamb, I do think Shepard is a spot start for a week or 2. Now, Chris Godwin, the report said there's a real possibility he does return in week 4. Again, I don't think he's going to be 100% himself until maybe like week 8, maybe week 10. But if he's out there, he's probably going to see opportunities. I assume he'll play at least 50% of the snaps. This is something to monitor moving forward. But if Chris Godwin isn't out there, it's Emeka Egbuka who's battling an injury, and then it's basically Sterling Shepard and like Ryan Miller unless they sign somebody or trade for somebody, which with Chris Godwin coming back soon, I don't think they'll do that. Sterling Shepard, to me, he's not going to be a league winner like we're saying with Christian Kirk and Jalen Tolbert, but he's going to be a guy who can go out there and probably project for like 8 or 9 points, potentially get you 10 plus points. He's going to be out there in the red zone as well. This is an offense with Baker Mayfield that has been a top 10 passing offense for now basically 3 straight years. He's somebody as a number 2 option in that offense. There could be be worse options. And the next guy I just want to remind you about, and by the way, if you're watching still to this point in the video, make sure to hit the subscribe button. It takes 2 seconds. We're so close to 200,000. Appreciate that a ton. Now, that guy I was talking about is Jalen Coker, who I just want to remind you, IR guys, he's eligible to come back in week 5 for the Carolina Panthers, who could use some other weapons that are not named Tetairoa McMillan. Just a reminder, Coker down the stretch last year, his final 4 games, averaged nearly 11 fantasy points per game, 54 receiving yards per game. That doesn't sound crazy. 54 yards per game for a guy who was trending up, was having a great preseason and training camp. Everything looked good to the point where they were comfortable trading away Adam Thielen. But then he unfortunately suffers the injury right before the season. But this is a guy trending in the right direction. As an undrafted free agent last year, he played his way onto the field over some other guys who were drafted ahead of him in that year's draft. And he played pretty well. I mean, this is how well he played. According to the 33rd team over on Twitter, you can see right here, Jalen Coker ranked 5th among rookie pass catchers in yards per route run last season. Only guys ahead of him, Brian Thomas, Ladd McConkey, Malik Neighbors, and Brock Bowers. All those guys went in the first or second round of fantasy drafts this year, when Jalen Coker likely went undrafted in most leagues. Maybe before he got hurt towards the end of the summer was like a 12th round pick. He would probably slot in as the number 2 receiver right when he returns behind Tetairoa McMillan. Xavier Legette's doing nothing for this team, and now he's banged up. Hunter Renfrow has shown flashes here and there, but again, he's a 30-plus-year-old wide receiver, just kind of a fill-in. They actually cut Hunter Renfrow when Jalen Coker, before he got hurt, then they had to re-sign him. I assume Coker's going to slide in as the number 2 here. Other guys in this offense, tight end Jatavion Sanders, he's banged up now. There's nobody else. It's Tetairoa McMillan and then probably Jalen Coker. This is somebody that, again, I'm not going to say is a league winner by any stretch, but he's somebody who's one step ahead in terms of like tiers of these Jalen Tolberts for rest of season, these Sterling Shepherds for rest of season. Obviously, right now he's not, because he can't play in week 4, and maybe it takes him a week or 2 to get going because of his injury. But rest of season, week 10, 11, 12, I'd rather have Coker than some of these other names we're mentioning. All right, so that's the list of the wide receivers that you should consider adding before your friends do entering week 4. Now, if you want to see the running back version of this video, you can check it out right here. 5 running backs, and there's some big running backs. It was a massive waiver wire week at all positions. Big running backs in this video that I think will help your team out. Be sure to watch this before your friends potentially take them off the waiver wire.